Hello and welcome to a very special video on the Blue Abroad YouTube channel. Today in this video we celebrate 10,000 subscribers, and I had pictured doing this video 5 years ago, to be honest with you, and I promised I would do it. It can be a little bit uncomfortable making this about me, but also this video is for me watching in 10, 20, 30 years and my grandchildren one day. And yeah, I think it's important to just take a moment to acknowledge these milestones. The numbers, like, it's just a number, but it was a goal in sight once upon a time. 10,000 subscribers, it was a nice number, and it was a vision and it was a dream. And so I thought it was also important to document that. And also, there are so many people that have come on board with this channel in the last 12 months, 24 months, but there's a whole backstory to the Blue Abroad YouTube channel and the whole Blue Abroad experience that I think it's important to share, so we know the context of where this all began. And so I went back in the archives to the very first episode of anything that I had ever put out. And the first thing on record that I found was from the 18th of March, 2018 on SoundCloud. So this all started with my iPhone when I was living in Israel, in Tel Aviv. I guess the precursor to that was I was listening to a lot of podcasts. I was at a point in my life where I had left Australia. I had quit my full-time job as a lawyer. I was in the industry for 3.5 years. I didn't want to do it anymore. I hated it. I was depressed, but I was also battling between not wanting to be ungrateful for the position I was in, but also this realization that I just wasn't happy and something else was drawing me away. So long story short, ended up in Tel Aviv. I was with an ex-girlfriend. We lived there. We moved there, and I was just absorbing as much as possible, listening to a lot of podcasts, and then had an idea to start a podcast just to document thoughts and to stay connected to the club and to stay connected to what was happening week to week. There was never really an intention back then to be an influencer or have tens of thousands of followers or subscribers or be this thing. It was purely out of just documenting things, and I guess this philosophical understanding that what we have right now with content online is what used to be the cave drawings back in the day, where we look back now and we try and piece the puzzle pieces together and tell us a story of what happened. Whereas now it's a bit more clear. You can write things down, you can record things on audio, or you can make videos and record your thoughts for many, many decades and centuries after you're living. And that always fascinated me. And it was a time in my life where I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do and what really lit me up. And I was living away from home. I was traveling, working for a sports tech company. For me, it's always been sport and travel. Those are the two things when it all came down to it. What lights me up? Sport, travel. And then when you talk about sport, Carlton at the top of the list. So the Carlton preview for 2018 happened. I'll put some links in the description below so you can follow along if you want to check them out. A period of time went by, and then came Anchor. Now I have Gary Vee to thank for Anchor. I was an avid listener of the Gary Vee experience, just absorbing as much knowledge, just a young, ambitious man, just trying to figure it out. And it really wasn't until 2018, September, that I decided this is what it's going to be. This is what I'm going to do. At the time, I was watching a lot of fan channels in the Premier League. I was blown away by it. I was blown away by the fact that people were creating lives for themselves, talking about, writing about, and really just speaking and telling us all about what they love and their experience. That fascinated me. When I was in high school, I lived on either side of the iPhone. So the iPhone came out when I was in year 11. And social media really took off when I was probably in year 12 and then that first year of uni. Facebook was there, MySpace, and then Instagram. YouTube was obviously there, and I was a YouTube kid. I would watch YouTube videos every single day. I played basketball growing up. I'd watch YouTube videos before I'd play every game to hype myself up. I was 100% a YouTube kid. So 2018 happens, obviously not a good year. And then I muster up the courage. I don't know if it's courage. The more I did it, the more I learned what worked. The more I studied, the more I learned what was better to do. And so on the 20th of July, 2018, I posted my first video.
All right. What's up, Carlton people? Good to be on video this time. Got myself a little tripod and I'm going to be experimenting with the video format for the podcast.
So I don't know if any of you know this, but the Blue Abroad YouTube channel actually started as just my personal account. So I'll put the link in the description. You can watch those early videos and watch the journey. And I was just, I look back now, and there was a time where I would look back and cringe. And now I look back and I'm like, fucking good on you, mate. You didn't know what was coming. You didn't know what this all was. You just wanted to document and have a crack at something. So there was a great unknown. It's a bit different to now. Now you have so many podcasts and so many outlets and so many people who are doing it, who are creating content, whether it's about Carlton or anything. So there's a sense of, I can do it because anyone can do it. Back then, there weren't as many. Heath Buck was doing YouTube videos. The Carlton Live Boys were on Facebook. A little later on down the track, I found the Ian Prendercast. I used to ride the bus to work, listening to the Carlton Show. And that was it. Those were the content creators. And somewhere along that time, I realized we needed more content. There wasn't enough. For someone who's not living in Melbourne, who doesn't walk into a cafe and see the newspaper there and read about the club or read about the news or hear the conversations from other tables. If you're international, if you're interstate in a place where footy doesn't really exist or is not really the dominant topic of conversation, you don't have much. So yeah, these were things that brewed and that led to the decision to do it. And these people are a little bit older than me who had seen the great, mighty Carlton Football Club, whereas I hadn't watched as much of that as what they had. And so there was this feeling of, you put yourself out there and, at that point I was just about to turn into that part of my life where I knew what I wanted to do, didn't care what anyone thought, couldn't give a fuck. I probably lived a lot of my teenage years having that anxiety and having that fear of what people thought of me and was I good enough? And that stems from, my relationship with my biological father in childhood. So yeah, started video on the 20th of July on Facebook. Also uploaded it to my personal YouTube channel and then started the journey there. And then the great moment happened, and that was when Arsenal beat Cardiff 3-2 up in Cardiff. And I got on with Robbie Lyle on Arsenal Fan TV. Bulb moment hit me like, oh my God. Not only do I want to do this, I need to go home and I need to give this a proper shake. And I've always been someone that goes all in with anything I'm doing. I'm 100% in or I'm not doing it. And so at that point, there was a lot to consider. I was in a relationship. I was pretty happy at the time, but my instinct and my heart and my gut were pulling me away and were pulling me into something else. And I felt this. It's hard to explain. I think those who feel it know, like when something really pulls you on the inside, you need to listen to it and tap into it. And I think because I had done that previously when I left my job in Melbourne, to go and live abroad, I think that was the first step of me being able to do it. So a lot of thinking went into it and a lot of heartbreak went into it. I ended up leaving Israel to come home to Melbourne and start the YouTube channel and, start the YouTube channel properly and cover it properly. So in my mind, it was, okay, Arsenal Fan TV, the inspiration. I'm coming home. I'm going to film previews, reviews, player ratings, everything. We're going to do fan cams outside the stadium, just like Arsenal Fan TV. And you know, it was a very exciting time. I had to cut back on my lifestyle, so to speak. I was making good money. I had to come home, back with my parents, back where it all began in South Morang. And, you know, my parents are a massive reason why this all happened. And it's not even from when they took me back home when I came back to Australia. It was from childhood, because my parents always instilled in me, you can do anything you want if you put your mind to it. Like, it was one of the key messages growing up. So I've never been an ultra talented person. I've always been a hardworking person, and I got that from mum and dad. And so, yeah, that was instilled then. And so, you know, fast forward, come back to Australia, living back with mum and dad. I'm 28 years old, horrific breakup, emotionally, just, you know, because I did the breaking up, it was tough. Usually when you get your heart broken, that can be tough, but it works both ways. But I knew deep down I was here for a greater mission, a greater purpose. And I went all in on it. And then, you know, we finished 2019. It looks good. I come home. Teague's taken over as coach. The first game back was the famous game against the Brisbane Lions, and Patrick Cripps has 38 possessions and 4 goals. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I've timed this brilliantly. Finished 2019. We charge into the end of the season. And I'm thinking, this is perfect. We start, you know, pre-season 2020. Then, you know, life happens. The world happens. COVID happens. And that rocked me. That shook me in ways that I can not really explain, because it was a real paradigm shake up of what I thought the world would be when I got home and what was going to happen and what actually happened. So, you know, it's tough living with mum and dad. You're 28 years old. I was not depressed. I was like emotionally struggling. I guess I was a little bit depressed. I was a little bit depressed for sure. We all were. Life hit us in the face. You know, I had put myself in a situation where I was at my physical, mental, spiritual worst. I was like 120 kilos in 2020 at the height of lockdown. It was shocking. It was shocking. Bad habits, bad eating, emotionally eating. It never mattered. It never mattered to me. Like, what do I look like on camera? Yeah, I'm definitely not at my best version of myself, but I'll be better. I'll work on it. And so I've never worried about that feeling of what does it look like? What do I sound like? What do I look like? And a lot of people get caught up in that, and it's something that just comes with life. When you are doing something that you are truly, truly obsessed with, you do not care about anything else other than doing the thing. And that's what it was for me. So, yeah, and I also have this ability to know that not everything lasts forever. So no matter what situation I was in, I knew I would be better. I knew I would get better. I backed in the work ethic that I had to be better, and that was that. So all of a sudden the dream gets tested, and that's ultimately what it was. It was a test of, all right, you want to go all in on this? Well, what are you going to do when the footy's not there? And I would say the most critical part of all of this was 2020, when we had the lockdown and we weren't going to the football, because I had to be creative and find a way to keep going. And so that's when I started all the AFL Evolution videos. And, you know, over time, I've collected these people who have been following from each part of the journey, whether you were watching when I was in Israel, whether you were watching when I got home, whether you started watching with AFL Evolution videos. And then, you know, we get through the season, fan cams become an online event, which in hindsight was a silver lining, because I realized most people watch the game not at the ground. So we unlock that. Mind you, along the way, we've added people. At the start, I always did intend for this to be a fan engagement platform. But at the start, it was just me, because I was the only one doing it. I knew that I needed to build trust and needed to build some momentum before other people saw for what it was. But yeah, so Blue Abroad was named Blue Abroad. It's not about me being the Blue Abroad, even though I guess I am. It was about we are blue and we are abroad. Now, for the Australian that's never left Australia, that sounds like, oh, you're abroad, you're outside of Australia. But the word abroad actually means a wide ranging area. So the whole idea was we are blue and we are everywhere around the world. Just a FYI. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's open to interpretation. And there's a lesson in that. Don't worry about perfecting the name of something and the brand of something, because what matters more is the actual substance of your content or the product you're selling or whatever it is. I've never been a perfectionist. I've always been someone to just go and do. And, so that's that. 2020 happens. Then we get, very disappointing, then we get to 2021. At that point, just before 2021, I move into this place here. 2021, we keep adding layers. We work with younger people. We work with older people. There are lessons along the way that I've learned. I'm imperfect. This channel is imperfect. And it's a reminder about the world. And it's a reminder about our club. And that is that our club, much like the world, is run by humans. Humans are flawed. Therefore, the world is flawed. Therefore, the club is flawed. It's a reality. It's all imperfect. And Australian culture is really interesting because you have this underlying notion of don't be proud of yourself. Don't celebrate your own wins. Don't talk yourself up too much because you're going to get a big head, or we need to chop you down. That tall poppy syndrome, it's real. And I struggle to adjust back to Australia. And if I'm honest, I'm probably still struggling to adjust back to Australia. I know I won't be here forever. I don't, as in living in Australia, living in Melbourne. I know I'm moving again for sure. So that's just what it was for me. That was my experience. It might not be like that for everyone, but that's what it was for me. And so, look, fast forward, we're in 2023. It's June 2023, 5 years on, more than 5 years on from the very first recording, 10,000 subscribers. And I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has been a part of it, whether you've started and left and you're not even watching this video anymore because you've had enough of me or you've had enough of the channel or whatever, or whether you've come late. I want to thank you. And I think now where we sit when it comes to the content landscape, it's something really significant has happened. There are fucking 20 something Carlton podcasts. It is incredible. And I think 2023 has been a year, without wanting to zoom too much into this year because this video will last forever. It's been difficult this year. Expectation, we're still shit. We still can't kick over 100 points in a game. And so it's challenged me, it's like, fuck, what am I doing? I'm devoting my life to this, But then I get messages from people who started a podcast and they'll say, you inspired me. And it's like, oh, that was not an intention that I had at the start. I want to inspire people. That was not what I want. That was not what I thought would happen. I just was focusing on my life and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with myself. So that's really special. There are so many things I've learned along the way. There are mistakes that I've made in everything, whether it's the way I've spoken about players on camera. For me, again, there wasn't like a bigger brother or an older person or a person before me that I could talk to get advice on how to go about it. I just had what I was inspired by and what I was watching, and that was Arsenal Fan TV, and they're just going crazy. And I thought it was amazing. I thought it was so entertaining. And I guess a key moment probably after I had a little bit of just a sentence. I called a player a fucking fraud, which is not the worst thing to say, but also it's not good. It's not good. We shouldn't talk like that about people. And even though we get so frustrated, and even though we get so emotionally invested, and even though they should be better, and even though they piss us off and all of that, I learned that lesson pretty quickly. There's interactions that I've had with supporters that I could have been better with, no doubt. So it's all imperfect. But now you get to a point, and the more it grows, and this is the part that I would have to share with those who are creating content now and growing. As it grows, you have a responsibility, and that is difficult to manage because there's so many people I'll meet, whether it's young kids who look up to me or want to talk to me, mothers with their families, fathers with their families. Like there's all sorts of different people, and sometimes I can get caught in the trap of just wanting to please everyone, and that's the worst thing you can do. Just be you, and I just be me. I'm not an expert on this game. I'm not. I never purport to be. What I am is really curious about this game, really curious about this club. I'm all about asking the questions that need to be asked and generating discussion. You know, we needed an evolution in this fan space, because what we had was people on forums with no profile photos, saying all sorts of things about players, whereas now at least we've got cameras and people are identifiable, and therefore you can be held accountable, you can be reached out to. So that was important. And so now we get to a point where, you know, there are certain parts to my life that I need to be grateful for. Eat Up Australia is a massive one. I was working part-time with them while I was building this. That came to an end after 2 years. Then I needed to get into some full-time work and get inside a team again, get inside a company working in the digital space. So that's where Foundr came into play. At the time of filming this, it's time to leave Foundr. I finish up in 5 weeks, which is petrifying. It's a big milestone. And I know that me watching this again in 10 years' time, you'll say, mate, it was all fine. It's all going to be okay. It all worked out for the best. But it's a blessing that the channel's grown to the point where it needs more of me, you know, and I'm ready. I'm ready for that. I'm ready to take things to the next level again. So, yeah, it's been a phenomenal ride and a vulnerable ride. You guys from the beginning have watched me grow up. Carlton's a part of my life. It's a big part of my life. It's a big part of my personality, but I don't showcase my personal life at all. Nothing about, you know, my relationships, my family. It's, you know, this is just what I'm obsessed with. I am clearly obsessed with this. And, you know, the world changed. You didn't need to do the job that was the highest paying job because that's what was available. Now you can build something for yourself doing what you love. And it's difficult because on the one hand, there's that. And then on the other hand, you know, we're an insecure society. So numbers, views, likes, comments, it validates poor behavior at times. And that's the really dangerous part. You can get really high view counts if you are toxic. That is a reality. That is a sad reality. Probably goes to show a bit more about the human species than anything and what we're drawn to, you know? So that's my message to any content creator, whether you're on Instagram, TikTok, whatever you're doing, you have a responsibility. And I'm not going to tell people what to do. People got to figure it out for themselves. They've got to make their mistakes for themselves, just like I had to as well. So yeah, I'm older, I'm wiser, 32 right now. 27-year-old me was just someone who had an unknown ahead of them, didn't know what was coming, but I knew that this is what I wanted to do. 32-year-old me is proud of what has happened. And now it's time to look ahead. You know, the road to 10,000 is an important one. And now I focus on the road to 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, and we go all the way up, all the way up. The end goal is 100,000 subscribers. We will get there. I promise. It's going to happen. So what that looks like, we'll find out. You know, and the beauty of it all is, you know, people come and go, and that's okay. But the club remains the same, and the passion remains the same. And we're entering a really important phase of the world, and especially for a sporting organization like ours, because fans are becoming digital, and we need a fan engagement platform and a channel of communication between the club and the fans, especially in the digital age. And I've been passionate about this from the very beginning. Unfortunately, the industry doesn't see it that way yet. I know they will. They will eventually, but this is only going to grow. This is an industry. It is led by people. And I saw this happen in Europe and in the US and where I was traveling for work. I saw it happen with my own eyes. And Australia is a place where things happen when it comes to innovation, for the most part, generally a few years later. So once I identified that, I realized there was something here. Well, that's it. I'm blown away that we got here. Although, to be honest with you, it doesn't feel any different. It's just a nice number, but also it's important to celebrate your wins and your milestones, especially at a time like this where we're tough. We're doing it tough. We've lost 6 in a row. I think 8 of our last 9. We're still struggling. But at the end of the day, we're going to be watching this team for the rest of our lives. Now, is this year over? It might be, but there's always going to be the next year and the one after that. I'm not accepting mediocrity. I'm accepting reality. this is what it is. I'm devastated that 5 years later, after producing all the content every week for 5 years, that we're still in the same position, in the bottom 4. I'm devastated. But the journey doesn't end. It keeps going. And I promise to document this thing at least. I'll be here at least until we win the premiership. And that's what's going to be special when we're documenting the rise. We're going to be enjoying it. So anyway, thank you once again. A long video. In part 2 of this video, I'm going to answer all of the questions that you submitted to me, and we'll go through them one by one. So anyone who's been a part of this in any way, writers, content creators, viewers, subscribers, members who pay to donate, to give back to the channel, thank you. You made a dream come true. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. And this position is a privilege. It's not a right. It's a privilege, and it's something I take very seriously. And it's something I know that I'm going to continue to be better at. I'm not the finished product. I promise to continue to get better. I promise to continue to self-reflect and look at ways to improve the way I interact on camera, the way I interact with people. And, there will be times where I get it right. There will be times where I get it wrong, but just know that I'm always reflecting on it and looking at ways to be better. And at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We all want a fucking premiership. We want premierships. That's what we want. So that's that. Thank you once again for being a part of it. Don't forget to enter the 10K giveaway. Link is in the description. You don't want to miss it. I'm giving away all the things, and we'll go from there. Have a good one. Stay safe. And as always, go Blues.